Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa bihi nasta'een. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. How are you doing? I know that the title that I have up there is a provocative one, but hear me out. What's been happening in Palestine for the past almost 2 years now, year and a half, is not happening by accident or for no reason. And we as Muslimin, we can respond in one of two ways. We can beat our chests and cry, woe upon us, woe is us, and basically just feel sorry for ourselves that nobody's coming in and saving us, that everybody, that the whole world is just looking at the butchering that's happening and proceeding with business as usual. Or we can take matters upon ourselves, stop feeling sorry for ourselves, understand nobody's coming to save us except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah is not going to save us unless we take the actions and the steps that are necessary for us to be united, for us to win, for us to have strength. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, in Tansurullaha yansurkum, that if you grant Him victory, He'll grant you victory. And us waiting around, hoping that Islam will rise again and have strength again, that the Palestinians and the Uyghurs and the Sudanese and the Yemenis will, once again have safety and comfort, this isn't going to happen by accident. Because the situation that exists right now did not happen by accident. And so this takes me back to our title. What can we learn from the Zionists? And it need not be said, the evil of the Zionists. It need not be said. I don't need to make a takedown video of them. I'm here, again, I'm taking the second response here, and I'm understanding how power works. I'm understanding how nation building works. Because, as a Muslim, we look into the world as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructed us to do, and we ponder. And those things which cause success, those things which create effects according to the laws of science, according to the laws of sociology, human beings are a kind of system on their own. It doesn't matter if you're a Muslim or kafir, there's one way to build a building. It doesn't matter if you're Muslim or kafir, there are certain principles behind nation building, right? Now, our Islamic perspective informs how we approach anything in life. But we cannot resign ourselves to a kind of fatalistic, spiritualistic idea that without taking into consideration the material cause and effect, that we're going to extract ourselves from our current situation. This takes me to the Zionist movement, which was spearheaded by a man called Theodore Herzl in the 19th century. You see, my dear viewers, once upon a time, Jews in Europe never even considered the idea of a Jewish state. Jews in Europe saw themselves as European. They were assimilating within the local populations. But Theodore Herzl, as a secular Jew himself, saw the persecution that was happening to the Jews, saw that the Jews could not thrive within a Europe that was Christian and was always persecuting the Jews out of their own bigotry or whatever. And in order to remedy this, he came up with this idea that the Jews should have their own state. And would it surprise you to know, dear viewer, that this concept, that this vision was deeply unpopular with the Jews in Europe? Because it's as though, it's almost kind of like a back to Africa movement. It's insulting, you tell an African American, you don't belong in America, or America's not for you. You should just go back to Africa and develop your own country there. It's something that the white nationalists would be very pleased for Africans to adopt such an idea. And so, likewise, anti-Semitic Europeans were very happy with Theodore Herzl's idea because, they wanted to kind of get the Jews out of Europe. And for the same reason, of course, Jews in Europe were not so hot about the idea. Jews in Europe were, for a few reasons. I'll mention the reasons. There's 3 reasons why Jews in Europe did not like Theodore Herzl's idea of a Jewish nation. Number 1, Jews in Europe, like I said, were assimilated into Europe. They felt like they belonged to Europe, right? So they didn't want to leave what they saw as their homes. They were comfortable with the status quo. Now, the second reason, and this one made me laugh, is that Jews in Europe did not believe in a Jewish state without a Messiah. What does that remind you of? See, I laughed because whenever I speak to Muslims about the idea of an Islamic state or unifying the Muslimin, they always say, well, this is for the Mahdi to come and do. We're here, doing our own thing, and when the Mahdi comes and saves us all, we'll go to your beautiful Khilafah. Even though there's no Islamic evidence whatsoever to suggest that we ought to just rest on our laurels, waiting for a Mahdi to come. The Mahdi will come and he'll have his thing, but we have a specific obligation and responsibility right now. The third reason was the idea of a Jewish state was very nationalistic, and Jews at the time were usually more leftist, more liberal, more socialist in Europe, and so this was kind of against their, you can say, European moral compass. Even though Europe was super nationalistic, there were factions of Europe which were not nationalistic, the left wing, right? So they were more like that. And when you look at these few reasons, you see lots of resonances with the Muslims today. That we're comfortable with the status quo, many of us. That we are waiting for a Messiah to come and save us. That many of us are uncomfortable with the idea of a khilafah, or uncomfortable with the idea of Islamic unity and Sharia because, we have more leftist and liberal leanings when it comes to secularism, religion, politics. We've inherited these ideas from the West, and we've become comfortable with those ideas. And unfortunately, our moral compass as Muslimin is not in resonance with what has been revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, is not in resonance with the idea of God's sovereignty. So Theodore Herzl had a tough time with his unpopular idea, but he worked on it. He set up the world's first World Zionist Conference. So people came from all around the world and they discussed Jewish statehood, Jewish nation building. And slowly but surely, Theodore Herzl recruited influential Jews to his movement. People that could build a nation, people who had the drive and the commitment to make a difference, in the Jewish community. And of course, he gained the support of specific power brokers among non-Jews, for most notably the British, and kind of aligned with them to kind of build a Jewish state. And not every detail about the Zionist journey is relevant for our situation as Muslims. But one can look at what happened there in that 19th century leading up to World War II. And World War II is when things really, really kicked off, because that's when the Holocaust happened, right? And Jews felt, that Europe had become uninhabitable. And those stragglers, those Jews who had resisted the concept of Jewish statehood, became, it was impossible to stay in that mode. Right? Everybody now believed, okay, we got to have our own thing. We can't rely on anybody except ourselves. We got to protect our own interests. But you can see a resonance there as well, in the sense that right now the Muslimin are being genocided in Gaza, most notably, but also we can see it in East Turkestan with the Uyghurs. We saw it with the Rohingya in Burma, and oppression of all kinds all throughout the Muslim world. The problem, my dear viewer, is that we as Muslims, we don't see ourselves as a nation. We don't see ourselves as one people. And the more I think about this problem of the humiliation of the Muslimin for the past 100 years, the more I understand, and I see viscerally, this duck sees it too, that the problem of the Muslimin is that we don't see Islam as a nation. Islam is not our in-group. The Muslimin is not our in-group. And the in-group is that group in which you feel solidarity with. You as an Egyptian person, what's happening to the Palestinians, I'm sure you feel bad and you feel some sense of solidarity. But if it was happening to Egyptians, would you feel it more or the same? If your answer is more, I would feel it more if it were the Egyptians. I would feel more the urgency for the ummah to do something. Then this is our problem. It's that our in-group loyalty has been replaced by nationality, by nationalism. And these are the conversations that we need to be having with Muslims, is that this status quo of secular nation states, which have replaced our Islamic loyalty, replaced our Islamic in-group adherence, is what's causing our current situation. And the way to replace that is to get people to understand that actually Islam is a political idea, and that our identification with Islam is not just purely a religious one in the sense of, a spiritual relationship with God. Rather, that spiritual relationship with God has political undertones and consequences to it, because us as Muslims, as believers in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we believe in a togetherness in this world that's based around the Sharia. We believe that we have a covenant between ourselves and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this covenant gives us a covenant between each other, that we conduct ourselves according to God's will in all situations. And that only through that can real justice occur in the world, right? And Muslims, because they have been languishing in a state of secular understandings for a long time, have replaced their political understandings with capitalism, communism, socialism, nationalism, Arab nationalism, pan-Arabism, whatever it is. These are the things that we need to, the tawaghit, the idols that we need to smash in a nice way for Muslims, so that they can come around to seeing who they really are. Just as Theodore Herzl was able to do that for the Jews, and we don't take him as a role model from any perspective, but we do see success where it exists. And sometimes when you see success in your enemies, it has an inspirational dimension to it that doesn't exist, or is a little bit different. It's a different flavor than when you see success from your own people. Like for example, our own heroes in Islamic history, and definitely the hero of heroes, the Prophet ﷺ. But when you see the enemy can do it, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this in the Quran, that the non-Muslims, the kuffar, are allies of one another. They support one another. They strengthen one another, to dominate the world. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the kuffar are allies of one another. And if you do not do likewise, O Muslims, there will be great corruption and injustice in the world. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.